Good evening, everyone. My name is Ben Nelson. I'm a project manager with the St. Paul District of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Today we're here to talk about the Robinson Lake Habitat Rehabilitation and Enhancement Project, and specifically the draft environmental assessment and feasibility report. The QR code on the screen directs you to the website for Robinson Lake. If you're on your phone, you can scroll down and find the report link. These slides are also up on the website now. So this project is part of the Upper Mississippi River Restoration Program. This program goes back to 1986, where it was authorized under the Water Resources Development Act. The projects under this program are authorized for fish and wildlife habitat rehabilitation and enhancement. So that's why we call them HREPs. So if I use the word HREPs, that's what I'm talking about. This is for the planning, construction, evaluation of fish and wildlife habitat projects. The program covers 5 states and 3 Corps of Engineers districts across the Upper Mississippi River watershed. We've completed over 60 projects and about 150,000 acres over the almost 40-year history of the program. In the St. Paul district, these are the active HREPs. So you can see the blue ones are in planning, which includes Robinson Lake here in Pool 4. Then we have projects that are in design, construction, or recently completed in gray. These projects that are listed here are on refuge lands, Fish and Wildlife Service refuge lands. So they are actually all 100% federally funded. So with that, for Robinson Lake and some of these other projects, Fish and Wildlife Service is our project sponsor. And then we have partners for this project with Minnesota DNR and Wisconsin DNR. But as you can see, projects go further downriver, even for our district, down to Pool 10. So it may include Iowa for other projects as well. This project stems back to 2020 fact sheet. So projects are developed based off of these fact sheets that identify some of the priorities. This is up on our website. It's also part of Appendix A in the report. But you can kind of see the origins of these projects in Lower Pool 4. This would include Big Lake, which was Phase 1. Is Phase 1, and Robinson Lake, which we're talking about today, for Phase 2. So we started that back early 2023 for Robinson Lake. And if some of you remember, I'm not sure who's been at all of these meetings, but we did have meetings here for Big Lake in 2022 and 2023. So this is a project on the Wisconsin side of the river, directly across the river here. And we had the initial meeting in 2022, and then a follow-up for the draft report in 2023. With that, we did get to a final report and signed a finding of no significant impact. So that's our decision document under NEPA. That's when we actually say this is what we're going to do. Otherwise, this is a draft report and we're still analyzing and looking at things. So that was June of 2024 for Big Lake, and that allowed us to move into advancing the design. So we're currently working on the design for Big Lake, which, like I said, is across the river on the Wisconsin side. And you can see that on some of the maps out in the hallway as well. If you want to know more about Big Lake, you can check our website. You can be added to the email list for that as well. Generally, they kind of getting folks lumped into Lower Pool 4, so you probably get updates on both if you're part of that email list. So this is the Robinson meeting that we had here, May 2023. And that was to kind of introduce the project and provide you all with some of that information and receive comments. Right now, we have the draft feasibility report and environmental assessment. The document was released on February 20th. It's up on the website, so that QR code, and we'll have the link later if you go there. There's another link to where the documents are located. So from that 2023 meeting, we do have on our website a summary of those comments and then some kind of question answers up on that website. It's under FAQ. But a lot of the comments that we got were people seeing changes to Robinson Lake over the past years and decades. Loss of open water habitat, the lake becoming shallower, sedimentation into the lake, increased aquatic vegetation. People also expressed interest in removing sediment, creating deeper areas for fish and for recreation. A number of folks also said that we should consider human habitat as part of our analysis. And folks mentioned dredging along shorelines for access and to use the material to build islands. We also did get a number of folks submit pictures to show some of the conditions and changes that they had seen in Robinson Lake. So as we talk about Lower Pool 4 and dredging in the project area, we should also note that the Corps does navigation dredging. We dredge the main channel of the Mississippi River for navigation in the project area. So it may be a little bit hard to see, but in the blue areas are dredge cut areas, or areas that we do channel maintenance. And then the red areas, which I think are pretty obvious to folks, or if you know the area, are the big piles of sand, the dredge material placement sites across the river. So as we're looking at the project area, there's a number of dredge material placement sites in the Lower Pool 4 area. Then another point is as we do navigation dredging, we do this for commerce, national security needs, and public recreation. And then we don't do dredging for personal navigation needs by the Corps. So narrowing in on Robinson Lake, this is the study area in the purple outline, identifying a few kind of key areas. So this is, again, this is part of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Refuge. We're looking at two kind of bigger islands there, Hershey Island, Federal Island, and then of course Robinson Lake proper. Then we also identify down there, you can see Wilcox Landing with the boat ramp and the State Wildlife Management Area, and then the dredge material placement site across the river, which we call the Tepeota Point Dredge Material Placement Site. If you're looking for more information on this, this is in section 1 of the report, and I'll try to outline some of the areas where you can find more information as the report as we move through these slides. So we're here today to talk about the feasibility report, and part of that is our planning process that the Corps of Engineers does. So starting with that 2020 fact sheet and working with interagency teams, we started looking at what the problems in the area are. I think a lot of you know these problems, are familiar with these problems, but this is what we identified specifically for this project with fish and wildlife habitat rehabilitation. So specifically, this is sediment coming from Chippewa River and upstream, depositing in the backwaters, loss of islands, poor water circulation, algae growth, lack of depth diversity or deeper pools, limited backwater fish habitat or habitat for overwintering, degradation and loss of floodplain forest, and the expansion of invasive species. This is in section 2.3.1 of the report, and this is, again, part of our planning process, one of the things that we kind of initially identified. So with that, we did come up with objectives as well. So working with our agency partners to develop these objectives, we came up with the 4 main objectives that would meet our project authorization for fish and wildlife. Those, just at a high level, were aquatic vegetation, backwater habitat, forest habitat, and islands. So now that we had the problems and the objectives identified, we started to look at measures. We looked at quite a few different measures as we were early in the process. These are some of the most common ones that we use for ATREPs. So one of the biggest ones is building islands. And that has kind of works twofold, where we use habitat dredge material to build the islands. So the islands are built where we place sand or granular material, and then we place topsoil or fine material on top of that. So a lot of times we'll be using that material that we dredge from habitat or for access to build these islands with that material. Some other common features would be a lot for forest restoration. So that would be planting, seeding, thinning, invasive species removal, things like that as part of the forest restoration features. I think in our documentation, we say non-structural. When we say that, we mean like an activity, where like structural would be like the construction of the islands, whereas the forest management features would be non-structural, as in they're an activity like planting or seeding. Some other features that we have that we're looking at include thin layer placement. This would be placing material on existing land. So as you look at the map, if you looked out in the hall or you're looking at the map in front of you, you may see on Federal Island, there are some areas highlighted for thin layer placement. This would be placing more of a soil material on top of the sand. This is also beneficial for smothering or covering invasive species like reed canary grass. And then it allows for a much more suitable material for plants to grow. So this raises the land, so species that are less tolerant to floods can grow, and it helps out with some of those native species versus the invasive species. We also have spawning reef. So this one it's kind of small on the map. You may not see it very well, but kind of a deeper area off of TPO to Point there, and that is a feature that we've found from other projects having success. It'd be beneficial for lake sturgeon spawning, but really it'd be good for a lot of fish species that are deep water broadcast spawners. It'd also be beneficial for mussels. So what we're looking at, we'd have 2 rock mounds, one of them with angular rock, one of them with cobble or rounded rock. And these would be placed about 12 to 15 feet deep in an area that has velocities that we determined from reading up on literature and seeing other projects that would work well for these fish for spawning. It's also at a depth deep enough that it wouldn't impact recreational boating in the area. So after we developed the problems and the objectives, and we looked at some of the constraints like environmental regulations or not increasing the flood stage impact, we also had some considerations like overall maintenance to the project. Then we started to work with the agencies on the interagency team on development of the features, the measures, and the alternatives. So some of the things that we looked at were some historic maps, back to 1890 to the 1920s and 30s, both before and after Lock and Dam 4 was built in 1935. And then, of course, we also referenced back to the fact sheet that had some information about why this area was important for doing some projects. We also have a lot of data from the long-term resource monitoring program. So this is part of UMRR, the Upper Mississippi River Restoration Program is long-term resource monitoring. So that gave us a lot of data in this area that we could look at from fish species and aquatic vegetation, a lot of data collected that was really helpful. And then with that, we're also able to say, well, what are our data needs? What do we need more of? So we went out, collected some more velocity measurements, bathymetry, soil borings, which really helped us identify what type of material is underwater in that area, which is really important for designing the island features. And then of course, we had public comments from folks, we had lessons learned, a lot of professional expertise and working on other projects where we've learned how to build islands through other HREPs. And then we also did some site visits with the agencies too. So when we went out, we had meetings in January and over the summer we had the public meeting. We went out for site visits to look at a lot of those features, look at some of the existing things or older features that were there, like wing dams. And with that, we were able to kind of come up with, okay, what do we want to see? What are the priorities? What are we looking at for features? And we take that back, do some modeling, some hydraulic modeling, where we're able to say, okay, we can build an island here, and we're not going to change the flood stage or have an impact in that way, or we can do this, or what's going to work with the various hydraulic modeling. So from that, we started to build up alternatives. The alternative 1 is the no action alternative. And then alternative 2 is the smallest one that the agency team found acceptable, and then kind of built up from there. So alternative 2 was just the one island with the associated dredging, an emergent wetland. So you can see here on the map the island in green, and the dredging in blue. This also includes some of the forest management or forest restoration features. All the alternatives have some amount of forest management. All the alternatives also have the spawning reef, which is maybe hard to see. Hopefully you can see on your map here. Oh, I can't go too far. Maybe I can go, I don't think you can see my mouse. I can point it out to folks if you have questions later. So then this is the largest alternative. This is alternative 7B. This includes 5 islands, 2 islands that aren't in any other alternatives. It has the emergent wetlands and the dredging associated with that, and of course the forest management and the thin layer placement. This is figure 12. So the alternatives are listed in those figures. So figure 11 would be the next largest alternative. For the report in section 6 right now, no decision has been made. This is a draft document, but our tentatively selected plan is alternative 6B. And the reason is it meets the 4 objectives. It has project benefits for aquatic habitat, for islands, for forest habitat, and backwater areas. So there's 4 islands for about 20 acres. Again, those are in green. And then we have dredging in blue. We have access dredging in the lighter blue, which is needed to get to a project area, and then habitat dredging in the darker blue at areas where we found that would be really beneficial to have some habitat for fish, and deeper areas, and areas that could be beneficial over the winter as well. And then I'll also note that as we're looking at the features, the dredging areas in blue, we did try to then protect them as well with islands or other features. So when we dredge an area, we want to make sure that it's protected and that there's a barrier so that wind wave erosion or other sedimentation factors, that it doesn't fill in shortly after we dredge the area. So that's, you can see some of these associated islands. It also really helps with constructability when we're able to dredge the material and place the material. And so that's helpful as well as part of some of the considerations. So this one has some of the forest management, the islands, the thin layer placement, dredging, of course, the spawning reef, and then the emergent wetland within Island 1. The report itself is draft feasibility report and draft environmental assessment. The feasibility report I mentioned is part of our planning process, and the environmental assessment is per the National Environmental Policy Act. So it's an integrated document that covers both. So you see the sections here, some of them follow a typical EA, but then there's also some of that feasibility report aspect to it. I'm not going to go through each section here, but if you have questions or want to know where things are at, you can just ask me or the other folks here from the Corps. Again, here's the report. Has a lot of appendices. These are also useful documents for areas where we add some more detail on certain sections. You know, the report itself is about 100 pages, but there's several hundred pages of appendices. So they are broken up into 3 files here. So you'll note when if you download from the website that you'd have to download the 3 different files, and that's based on the size limits and everything, trying to make that easier, but just wanted to point that out. As this document is an environmental assessment, part of the National Environmental Policy Act, just a reminder that this is, a process for us to make better decisions, to make better informed decisions. So we provide this to you as a public and for you to review and comment. And wanted to let you know, as a reminder, when you're submitting comments, it really helps us if you can be clear, concise, relevant, provide specific examples. I will say, as you're talking to folks out in the hall as well, make sure you put that comment down in writing as well. And if you have ideas, offer solutions and provide specific examples is really effective and helpful. So the next steps, provide those comments. You can provide them in the comment cards outside, email, mail. You can join our email list. If you're on the email list, you should have gotten an email from Natalie or me about the meeting and the documents. This is the website spelled out, but of course the QR code again. There's the address if you want to send in comments via mail. And then also, with the sign-in sheet out front, optional to include your address or some of that additional information. We'll try to redact that and keep that out of documents, but just know it may be part of the public documentation if you include that. I know that it has been helpful for us for folks. I know a lot of people here live on 166 or 151st, right, on either side of the lake. So that is helpful, but yeah, that's optional. So we'll pause there, and I think we have an extra microphone. Yeah, so we can open it up for questions. I want to check with good with the streaming or good? Okay. Yeah. All right, we'll open it up for questions then. And I'll ask that if you do have questions or comments, put them in comment cards, submit them in email as well. That's helpful for us. Yeah.
So I have a question about access all the way to Wilcox Landing. It looks like it cuts off about halfway there.
Sure. So
the blue dredging area that around the corner of the landing is, not really functional in the summer.
Okay. So
or it is functional. I'm going wide open and disturbing every fisherman in there that flipped me off.
Yeah.
I don't like doing that.
Yeah.
I'm fishing too.
Yeah. Sure. So you're talking extending it further south?
All the way to the landing.
All the way to the landing? Okay. Yeah. Make that comment. One thing we like to note with the dredging on the maps is we always try to limit it and say okay, this could change. This is going to depend on how we built the islands, how much material we need. So one thing as we're working with the islands we build and the areas that we dredge, we want a mass balance of the quantities. So we want to know, essentially that would be okay, focus a little bit further south. I know for Big Lake, we're currently refining a lot of that area of like where we're gonna dredge and how. So that's definitely something that, you know, how it is on the map won't necessarily be how it is as we've refined through.
I'm just thinking of public access.
Sure.
If everybody raised their hand and said, let's have the landing we can use in the summer, that would be good, right, Tom? So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm up here. Microphone's coming if you want to wait.
Well, my question is, on Hershey Island you have blue. Why do you have blue in there? Why are you dredging in there?
Sure, the inside Hershey Island there. Yeah, we saw that as an opportunity to be able to get in, do some habitat dredging, and that it's protected by the existing island. So within that island, you know, there's some shallow habitat there, but we could get in, and again, that blue shape could change, but it's something where we can dredge there, have that protected by the island, and then place, you'll see the thin layer placement right next to it. So we saw some benefits with that, but sorry, go, continue.
Okay, when you have all the cuts going into Robinson Lake, above Robinson Lake, where you could get sand, and where it is right now in Hershey, sand doesn't mount up in there very much. But on all those little tributaries going into Robinson Lake, they're filling in with sand. That's where I would take the sand, if you're going to have to take the sand.
Okay, yeah, and a clarification there, that for that spot, we're actually looking for the fine material, not the sand necessarily. So that's part of why we only go so far into there, because we have borings and locations. So when we're talking that orange, the solid orange there as thin layer placement, that's where we would want the fine material. So that one, we're not looking for sand. We're more specifically looking for fine material that we can place on top of sand and make that better for vegetation. So that one, yeah, that one is a little bit different. I know when we mentioned building the islands, we want the sand as the base, and then thin layer placement, we're looking more for the areas with more of the soil or fine material.
How big is that island where it's green going to be? How many acres did you say?
I'd have to check the report on the island one, the bigger one there. Is the total for the 4 islands is 20 acres right now. I don't recall off the top of my head. We can find it in the report for you after how big that island will be. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Natalie over here.
First of all, thank you very much for coming to do this. This is very, very informative. As I look at Robinson Lake here, it appears that most of the work that you're going to be doing is fairly close to the main channel. And are there any designs on dealing with the sedimentation that's where I would, as a local, would say is along by the high school? You know, as you fish along that area. It seems like there's a lot of sedimentation that's happened in there. Is there anything that can be done to be able to clear some of that out, or is that just not part of what you're planning to do? Because I've seen over the years that it has gotten more and more filled with sediment in that area. Thank you.
Sure, yeah. So on the western side, closer to us here in the high school, but also you're saying up Hershey and Federal Island on that side, right?
Yeah. Just go by the high school in that area.
Yeah. We did look at some features kind of up closer to Hershey Island and in some of those channels and areas. You know, that was part of our site visits as well. But as we looked at some of those features and thinking about what we could do there, a big part of that was, okay, if we're going to slow sediment into, or slow flow into this area and stop sediment from entering this area, we're also going to slow oxygenated water, turnover of water, other things, or just slow flow in general into an area that already doesn't get much. So we did look at some of those features like sediment deflectors and other things that we've used in ATREPs, and we did screen those out. I know that there was some modeling done. I think that that's in the report. I can certainly follow up and check. And then as we got further south, we did look at that area as well, noting some of the public comments, and then also part of the site visit just to take a look at that area. We did get a boring out there, found that it was a lot of that loose, flocculent, mucky material. So less, not exactly what we'd be looking for building islands or thin layer placement, where we'd be looking more for the soil type or sand. And then also just looking at the west side there, coming at it from it, and you noted at the beginning of your comment that a lot of it is on the east side and closer to the main channel. Part of it too is just that as we go, the lighter blue is the access dredging, and the further we get from the main channel or to get into other areas, we have to dredge a lot. We have to dredge to get to 6 feet, and so that ends up being that you're doing a lot of dredging for access before you even get to the area that you want to dredge more. Then also just making sure that we could keep, if we were to dredge over in those areas, to keep those areas protected. A lot of you have noted that these fill in fairly quickly or will fill back in. So as we have these islands designed, they're designed also to protect some of those dredging areas, and noting that if we were to dredge in other areas, we'd have concerns over the longevity of that staying dredged. And we are here till 7:30, so it's 6:35 now, so we'll have some more time for questions one-on-one, and we have a comment in the back, and then we'll go to you for
Really quick question. What's the time frame?
Sure. So we're still working through feasibility. I'm going to update the draft report. As we talk about, folks providing us comments. Try to get us your comments by March 21st, and then we'll work through that, update the document. We won't be going to a final report till fall or later in the year. But as far as construction timing, it'll be several years out still. We'll have, after we go through that, get to a decision or a finding of no significant impact or a decision document. We'll still have to go further into design and design refinements, and then we have a lot of ATREPs through the program, and just as funding's available and everything, I would say probably not until 2028 or 2029 for construction.
Even before this project began, I began to try to communicate with the Corps of Engineers, because I think anybody who lives in this area knows that we're next to a dying lake. And it's dying pretty rapidly now in more recent years. I got no response. So when I saw this project start, I had a little bit of hope. I think a lot of the problems that are pointed out are problems that I agree with, and I think the people in this room, the people who reside around this lake would agree. But what I'm missing, I don't see solutions that really change the trajectory of the lake. It looks to me like, to be honest, the Corps of Engineers have decided that this is going to die, and we're going to be there for the services. It's going to die. We don't have any, on the western side that you just talked about a ago, we don't have any solution. I was the one that brought up human habitat. I was told, nope, sorry, get out of here. We're not in the business of helping out the human side of it. Okay, I'll get that. Then I say, well, what about the fish? Along our shores there, really, we used to be able to fish. The fish as a habitat would come by us. That's almost gone now, especially as we get into the summers. We have a need and was intended from a long time ago to have a flow that would help the sewage treatment plant and make sure that we kept the oxygen levels at a reasonable level. But that flow is now virtually gone, and I don't see any solution to this. The business of the sedimentation, I don't see a solution that's going to change that. So I'm beginning to wonder why we would call this project the project that is habitat renewal and enhancement. And it seems like it's more watch the lake die project, and I'm really disappointed in that.
Yeah, and you can, I mean, we're documenting this, I think, but it's submit comments as well, and you know, we're looking at what we can do. We have a certain amount through UMRR of funding and a certain amount of authority of what we're able to do, and so we're looking at ways that we can help. I can totally understand that there are other issues in the lake. And you know, maybe there are other authorities or other programs or other ways that can help as well. But you know, we have our limitations with the program that we're working under as well.
Thank you. As a follow-up on the last two questions, realizing that Robinson's still in the planning stage and going to be, you said, 4 years away, what's the status on Big Lake? Because in the spirit of having the cup half full, if we can start seeing progress on Big Lake, we can see incremental improvements with, you know, what could happen on this and on Robinson. So just curious about that, Don.
Sure. Well, I like the optimism. It's still a little ways out to Big Lake. We're, you know, on the other side of the river here, and some of the features on the maps outside. Or on the website, like you mentioned. That project, we're into design. We're breaking up into multiple stages so that we can move forward with parts of the project. But yeah, that likely wouldn't be in construction until 2027 or 2028. So I apologize. I know you're going for optimistic to see something a little bit sooner, but you know, like I said, with the amount we have, an amount that's funded, and we have trying to keep projects in planning, design, construction. We have some projects downriver still working through, and hopefully at that point we'll have the funding and be at the right place, right time to be able to get that maybe a little bit sooner. But that's kind of what we're thinking right now. Yeah.
In catfish, Sue, I don't know if this is true or not, but I understand they're going to rip-wrap that?
Yeah, so that's part of Big Lake. The question was, are you going to rip-wrap catfish slough? And so that's a question related to Big Lake on the Wisconsin side, and I can show you on the map outside as well. The entrance to Catfish Slough, we have some shoreline stabilization features, so that would include rock riprap to protect the entrance there, and then there's a scour hole and dealing with that, so some of the integrity of the entrance of Catfish Slough off of the main channel.
It's just the entrance, not all the way down?
Not the whole thing. There are a few spots that we have we call rock closures identified, and that would be areas where we could try to the flow management type structure or try to protect some of the backwater areas that are existing or where we're dredging. So that would be similar to, like I mentioned, with the islands where we want to protect areas that are dredged. So there are a couple spots along Catfish Slough there as well.
You're going to delete water from going into the backwaters in Catfish?
It would still go in at higher flows for sure, but we're working on where that elevation is, but kind of protect that sedimentation from some of those backwater areas over at Big Lake.
Is that so you can put more sand back in the backwaters?
No. No, we try to be keeping the sediment out of the backwaters there, along Catfish Slough and Big Lake.
Okay, are you on the tributaries, on the cuts going down Catfish, are you gonna shut those off?
The cuts going down Catfish. So we could talk. I'll point out on the map after. Is that okay?
Thank you very much.
Yeah. It's like help with the map in front of me too.
Thanks for all the information. It seems like a lot of the sediment and portage come from the Chippewa. Are there any ideas on how slow the discharge of sand down the Chippewa?
I think that's been brought up before. I mean, I think if we could help at the source, that'd be great. But beyond kind of the scope and authority of this project, so we didn't look upriver or any of those solutions just from our authority. But I think that'd be a great idea for maybe another project. Any other questions? Otherwise, we can, chat out in the hall, chat here in the auditorium as well. Anybody, any slides you want me to go back to or anything? All right. Well, thank you all. Thank you folks for coming. Appreciate it.